Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing gameplay from the current reigning Pokemon Go World Champion, Beelzeboy, as he reveals his incredible Holiday Cup climbing team. This team is built around Alolan Ninetales as the lead, running Psyshock over Dazzling Gleam, Licky as the safe swap, as it is incredibly versatile in this meta, and as the closer, the ever-powerful Jellicent. Beelzeboy went on an incredible run on stream with his team, going on a 13-2 run to climb up to 2842 ELO. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's watch the World Champion in action. Hopping into the first match, picking up a pretty tricky lead, Alolan Ninetales into Amora. Amora does have access to Ancient Power, which would hit for super effective damage, and the opponent farms right up to it. Ancient Power will not knock out, but it does big damage to the Ninetales. In comes Licky, and that's going to be answered with a Toedscruel. This is a pretty nice bait out, as obviously Jellicent really does not want to take super effective Seed Bombs from the Toedscruel, and hopefully the Alolan Ninetales will be able to get a bunch of farm once Toedscruel eventually KOs the Licky. Toedscruel goes for the wrap, getting a defense drop to soften up the Licky. Licky now with the back-to-back body slams, Beelzeboy going for an undercharge, because Beelzeboy doesn't want to win this matchup. Instead, he's looking for massive farm on the Alolan Ninetales. This sets up perfect farm for the Ninetales. Opponent denies the farm down, they pivot into Amora, and that's going to be answered with Jellicent. Amora can also learn Thunderbolt. The question is, do they have it? The shield comes up, it's Ancient Power, and no, the Ancient Power boost! Absolute disaster in game number 1. Surf into the boost, and Amora will not take the knockout anymore. Amora's able to hang on. Amora just undertaps the Ancient Power, wanting whatever damage that it can get, and Jellicent will get a big Hex down. Jellicent absolutely loaded on energy, and so is the Alolan Ninetales. Jellicent fires off the Surf, Toedscruel gets KO'd. In the back is Torterra, and this game looks like a win. There's so much energy on that Ninetales. Surf is no shielded. Opponent knows they have to save both shields for the charge attacks on the Ninetales, but now Ninetales can just powder snow down. That game should have been a loss, but Beelzeboy got creative, set up a farm down for the Ninetales, forced the opponent to get aggressive and pivot out, and Beelzeboy finds a way to get the win. Great lead in the next match, and a great safe swap as well, leading Alolan Ninetales into Altaria, and the Lapras safe swap from the opponent gets hard punished by Jellicent. Jellicent absolutely loves the straight 4 pacing in this matchup, as it prevents Lapras, even at an energy advantage, from getting too out of hand. Lapras does shield up the first Shadow Ball, so the opponent can look to try and make a play for Switch Advantage. Unfortunately for them, they don't yet know that Switch Advantage is not going to help them because there's a rollout Licky in the back. Jellicent not going to be shielding because, again, Switch Advantage doesn't matter. Opponent goes for the Ice Beam. It does do more damage. It looks like the opponent's going to have to double shield if they want Switch Advantage. And unfortunately, double shielding is really not going to do much for them. Aggressive pivot into the Licky. Opponent's forced to send in the Altaria because this is Altaria's best matchup into the team. Altaria can't go onto the Ninetales, so it has to go here. Licky gonna shield something because odds are the opponent probably has a pretty good check to the Alolan Ninetales in the back. A fire type would make quite a bit of sense. Shadow Ball lands onto the Altaria, Licky continuing the overfarm and hoping that with these rollouts, Shadow Ball will take the KO. Shadow Ball lands, 1 HP on the Altaria, but a dazzling catch, catching onto the Jellicent and saving the Licky. Now he can wait down the timer and bring back in that Licky, because odds are it's probably something that Licky will do well against in the back. Back in comes the Lapras. Sparkling Aria is going to be shielded. Lapras going to make it to another charge deck, but this is a Licky we're talking about. It's very bulky. It's going to survive the Ice Beam, go for the full farm down, get the full farm down. What does the opponent have in the back as their final Pokemon? They're waiting down the timer. They're going to be revealing it momentarily. It's Aurorus, so not a fire type, but a Pokemon that will do very well into the Ninetales. Shadow Ball lands, that's devastating damage. In comes the Ninetales, and this is where the Psyshock surprise will be clutch. Psyshock is reached. Psyshock, big damage onto Aurorus, the powder snow down, and that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, Alolan Ninetales into Shadow Venusaur, an incredibly good lead. Opponent safe switches into Dunsparce, and there's no immediate counter swap. Instead, Ninetales is going to stay in and look to get some nice chip damage with Weather Ball. Weather Ball is going to land, and now in comes Licky. Getting that health advantage is very important, as this should allow Beelzeboy to be able to maintain Switch Advantage, which is very helpful when you have a Jellicent in the back. A lot of the time, Venusaur is paired with something like an Aurorus. We've already seen an Amora and an Aurorus, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of those two in the back, and Jellicent would obviously do very well there. the meantime, however, Dunsparce is going to be spamming out these drill runs, trying to do as much damage as humanly possible, but it can never overcome that health deficit, and Licky is able to maintain switch advantage. The opponent has a pretty straightforward idea. They want to try and go for a full farm down and exit with back-to-back sludges to threaten big super effective damage onto the Ninetales. But Licky is able to already get this Venusaur very low. Body Slam gets the shield, and Beelzebub gets aggressive. In comes the Ninetales. The Powder Snow does go through as Venusaur fires off the sludge into Ninetales' shield. Venusaur is going to switch. In the back is a Rock Throw Aurorus. Rock Throws are adding up quite a bit, but so will the Psyshocks. Psyshock is going to be shielded by the Aurorus. These Rock Throws are shredding through the Ninetales. Ninetales trying to make it to the back-to-back Psyshocks, but not quite able to get there. Only able to make one final Psyshock, and now in comes Jellicent. Jellicent is now immediately under threat from Meteor Beam. The shield comes up. They don't have it. It's Ancient Power instead. Ancient Power means that the Aurorus can't really damage this Jellicent. Opponent makes a nice catch, catching the Surf onto the Shadow Venusaur, but without Meteor Beam, they're just not getting through the bulk of Jellicent. Back in comes Aurorus, overfarming, firing off energy, Ancient Power. That's just not going to cut it. Jellicent makes the Surf, and that is going to be game over. Surf KOs Aurorus. Bit of a scary endgame, but once they revealed they didn't have Meteor Beam, suddenly the game was a lot more manageable. Alolan Ninetales into Wigglytuff in the next match, the battle of the fairy types. Opponent is going to be throwing a charm and then safe switching into Licky. Ninetales going to stay in this matchup, absorbing super effective rollouts, but looking to get some chip damage before switching into the mirror. This is a very common tactic in Holiday Cup, and I honestly find it to be a pretty helpful one. If you don't have a direct answer to one of these normal type rollout safe switches, and you have your own, the best way to potentially try and keep switch advantage is actually to go for a bit of a chip and dip. This is a strategy that has kind of fallen out of favor in the Open Great League, but in a Holiday Cup meta where the power level is a lot lower, it's a lot easier to get away with. Licky looks like it did win charge attack priority there. Body Slam into the opposing Licky does actually get shielded. So the opponent looking to make a play for switch advantage. Body Slam lands. Beelzebub knows that's just simply not going to be enough damage to take the knockout, and now Beelzebub will decide to put up the shield. The opponent shielded, he's more than willing to shield back. Gonna farm up, throwing 3 and the move CMP dying, because once you know that information that you win CMP in the mirror, it allows you to make very optimal plays. Back in comes the Wigglytuff. Licky throws one final rollout and a Body Slam, and that is some very helpful chip damage onto the Wigglytuff, as it's going to make it a lot easier to get rid of this Wigglytuff endgame. Back in comes the Ninetales. Ninetales has so much energy, and Ninetales gets to begin the Weather Ball spam. Weather Ball is going to be shielded up by the Wigglytuff. Another Weather Ball locked and loaded, and Beelzebub will also have the ability to potentially catch onto the Jellicent, as they are very, very low. Oh, what a catch! Catching onto the Jellicent, catching the double resistant Swift. That is devastating. I can't blame the opponent for immediately top lefting. What a savage catch. Unfortunately, there's a bad lead awaiting Ninetales in the next match, as it leads into Litleo. Save switch into Licky goes unanswered from the opponent. Licky fires off the Body Slam. That lands. That's very helpful damage. Opponent sends in Spiritomb, but they will always get the one-turn switch there because their third Incinerate's damage had not yet registered. Beelzebub instantly recognizes this, takes advantage, and then fires off the Shadow Ball. Beelzebub gets to another Shadow Ball and is going to bait with the Body Slam, as the opponent should shield. But the opponent doesn't shield! Oh my goodness! Well, a second Body Slam is reached. They will have to shield now unless they want to lose all this energy. But they will put up the shield. They're forced to throw a charge attack, and this mid-game has not gone great for the opponent. Unfortunately, the Ninetales kind of has to be sacrificed here. In comes the Ninetales. Unfortunately, Ninetales does get the one turn to bring in, so Ninetales does not get the Powder Snow through. That does mean he gets 2 Powder Snows instead of 1. Back in comes the Litleo, and that's going to be answered with the Jellicent. Unfortunately, Litleo has access to Crunch, which will be hitting for big, super effective damage. Litleo already at Crunch number 2, and now Jellicent has to decide where does the final shield get used. Jellicent is going to be no shielding. Crunch gets the debuff, so the decision to not shield the second does prove to be a wise one. Jellicent now going to fire off the Surf. Surf is going to be shielded. Litleo throws on alignment, and Jellicent is more than happy to take the free Hex. Now Jellicent does have the Surf. Litleo waits, tries to get a Surf catch. They have a Shadow Annihilate in the back. They didn't want to bring the Annihilate into the Licky because Licky can inflict devastating damage with Shadow Ball, so they saved the Annihilate, hoping it was a double normal team, but it was not. It was Jellicent in the back, and that was game over. Speaking of game over, what a terrible lead. A9 into Talonflame. Save switch into Licky is going to be answered with a Spiritomb, and this is pretty nice. Spiritomb has incredibly bad pacing, So Spiritomb will always be forced to give up an early shield, and this is a Pokemon that Jellicent doesn't want to see, so this is a very valuable bait out. I do think that Spiritomb does have a little bit of play in these limited metas, where the power level is a lot lower, and therefore its slow pacing is not as easily exposed, but man, it is not fast to charge moves whatsoever. In comes the Ninetales. Ninetales going to be no shield in the Rock Tomb, looking to take the knockout with Weather Ball and set up the Jellicent sweep. But the opponent has other ideas. They get aggressive, they pivot into the Talonflame, and now Jellicent is under a lot of pressure. Add to that the fact that the opponent was able to preserve that Spiritomb for later. Spiritomb could make life very, very tricky for Jellicent. Jellicent is going to be putting up the final shield. Jellicent farming up. Oh no, it looks like there was some game lag there potentially, so he was only able to do 2 instead of 3. We see the spinny ball of death at the top left, and that means, unfortunately, he missed out on an entire Hex. Talonflame goes for the fly, looking to switch into the Ninetales, predicting the opponent would go for the snipe attempt, and they do. In comes Spiritomb, a nice overfarm on the Ninetales. Weather Ball is going to take the knockout, and Ninetales will be able to make a Weather Ball into the Talonflame. Opponent, they're waiting down their switch timer. They're going to bring back in the Talonflame. A Powder Snow and a Weather Ball. Can this KO? The Weather Ball just misses the knockout. Jellicent gets the Hex down, and Jellicent's energy sweep, and the answer is yes. It's Sableye in the back. Jellicent goes for the Surf. Surf is not going to 2-shot. A Shadow Ball will be needed, and that is just pristine energy management. Surf plus Shadow Ball, KO Sableye, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Alolan Ninetales into Morpeko. Now this is a very tricky lead matchup. Ninetales does have a pacing advantage as it's 5-4 to Weather Ball and straight 5 for Aura Wheel. But obviously Morpeko has the ability to bait, and shielding a Psychic Fangs always feels terrible in that matchup. The good news is now the Morpeko is going to have Dark Aura Wheel because it's in its Hangry mode. And Dark Aura Wheel, even though defense has been lowered on the Ninetales, will fail to take the knockout. So Ninetales is going to be no shielding. There's the Aura Wheel, big damage onto the Ninetales, and Ninetales can look to return fire with the Weather Ball. If the opponent double shields, which Morpekos love to do, then we should see a switch out, and in comes Licky. Licky unable to make the body slam before Morpeko makes its Aura Wheel. The shield comes up. Licky needs this Morpeko gone, and Licky is just going to immediately undertap as the opponent potentially predicted that they would do 1 rollout in the move, and getting rid of that Morpeko is massive, because now in comes Sableye. Sableye, not necessarily a strong answer to Licky. Shadow Claw is double resisted, Foul Play does do extra damage this season, but for Licky, it's able to very comfortably survive that. So if they're bringing this in, they have something even weaker to Licky in the back. Back-to-back foul plays coming out from the Sableye, and that's just not going to be enough. This is not the Shadow Sableye, it is the Purified Sableye. Licky throwing 2 rollouts and the move, trying to leave with a little bit of extra energy. Shadow Ball will take the KO. In the back is Skeledirge. Oh, what a play! Transferred the Incinerate, and is now 1 off the Shadow Ball on the Licky. Oh my goodness, what a beautiful play. Threw 2 rollouts and then transferred the Incinerate damage onto that Alolan Ninetales to guarantee that the Licky would get the Shadow Ball. Those are the kind of plays that make a world champion. Beautiful gameplay. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We've got mirror leads in the next game, Ninetales versus Ninetales. The opponent is not only a Shadow Ninetales, but they're also uncharmed. I do think that Powder Snow is better in this meta overall, as Powder Snow gives you incredibly fast pacing. Psyshock lands, opponent no shields, and in comes Licky to absorb the Weather Ball. Weather Ball will do some sizable chip damage, and now out comes Furret. So far, 2 Alolan Ninetales plus normal cores. Baiting that out is going to be very nice, because obviously Jellicent would get completely destroyed by that Furret. The good news is the Ninetales for Beelzebub does still have quite a bit of residual energy. And the Ninetales is going to be what's needed to get rid of the Furret. Swift is going to land, switch timer's up, back in comes the Ninetales racing to the Weather Ball, but unfortunately, the energy in reserve comes in clutch as the Furret's able to outpace, and in a terrible turn of events, the opponent is able to save the Furret and send in the Ninetales. That is really bad news, because Jellicent does not want to deal with a Furret at any amount of health remaining. Thankfully, due to the quick pacing on Psyshock, Ninetales is able to make a second Psyshock and force the final shield from the opponent. They will get a full farm down. In comes Jellicent. Opponent blind through energy. Did they just go for the Weather Ball? No, they went for the Psyshock. Good reaction time from the opponent. Jellicent has a shield in reserve, and it's going to need it because the opponent's third Pokemon still is yet to be revealed. There it is. It is Stunfisk. Opponent makes a very nice catch of the Surf onto Furret. Furret Gonna get an undercharge, but unfortunately it will still KO. And this is gonna be a very tricky game. This will be right down to the wire. Surf lands. They have so much energy on this Stunfisk. I think it's gonna be all up to the Licky Licky. Discharge lands, actually taking the knockout for once. Can Licky Licky knock out with the Shadow Ball? It's going to be very, very close. This game coming down to the wire. Shadow Ball lands, Stunfisk withstands the damage on very low HP to secure the win. Hopping into the final match, leading Alolan Ninetales into Furret, an incredibly good lead. Furret gets crushed in this matchup, opponent safe switches out of the matchup, and they send in a Water Gun Lantern. There's not really a clear response to Water Gun Lantern on this team. The Ninetales chips with the Psyshock and sends in the Jellicent. The hope is that Jellicent will be able to eventually farm it into a range where Shadow Ball can knock out. The shield comes up and the opponent full sends the Thunderbolt. That is a very big shield for Jellicent. Jellicent farms up to 100 energy, unleashing Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball connects and down goes Lantern. Back in comes the Furret. Furret, Sucker Punches are adding up quite a bit, but even if they have Trailblaze, they won't get there before a second Surf is reached. So Jellicent able to actually get some pretty nice damage off in a matchup where it is very, very bad. In comes Licky Licky. Licky Licky just trying to be a damage sponge and hopefully save the Jellicent to do well versus whatever they have in the back. This Furret is on Brick Break. Brick Break is going to land super effective damage, and Licky Licky undertaps the Body Slam. That forces a shield from the Furret. Furret wants damage on this Licky Licky. Licky Licky still not going to be shielding, as Brick Break number 2 will connect. In comes Shadow Talonflame, and there's still quite a bit of HP remaining on the Jellicent. The decision to save the Jellicent proves to be a wise one. Jellicent farming up, and Jellicent should be able to throw 1 Hex in the move, 1 Hex in the move, and take home this win. Because the Hex to Surf pacing is 4, then 3. So Jellicent just in the driver's seat of this game, as 1 more Hex will reach Surf number 2, and this is just too much damage. Talonflame gets KO'd. All that's left is a couple HP remaining on the Furret, and that is a good game. All in all, these were some incredibly fun battles to watch, so many thanks to Beelzeboy for sending in this footage. I really like getting to showcase some of the best battlers in the world from time to time because, oh my goodness, the caliber of gameplay is incredible. There's so many games in which all seems lost and they're able to claw their way back, find any possible win condition, and somehow pull impossible wins out of completely lost situations. A way that I personally improve at Pokemon Go PvP as I continually try and get better is by watching battlers like Beelzeboy who are better than me. And Beelzeboy now streams on Twitch. I will have a link in the description or a pinned comment that has a link to his Twitch channel. Make sure to check it out and drop him a follow because if you're looking to get better, and I know even me is trying to get better, so basically everyone is always trying to get better at Pokemon Go PvP, watching someone like Beelzeboy play is an incredible way to do so. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. Thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.